Hi, my name is Christine, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar on the process of change. Now, a large motor corporation at one point invited an international trainer and speaker to address their top management, and they asked him, you're a knowledgeable person, you travel around the world, you mix with people of different sectors and all that. What is your prediction on the next 10 years? Now, this was at the beginning of the 90s. And he told them, ladies and gentlemen, I do interact with people from every sector, I travel around the world, and I can give a fairly accurate prediction on what the next 10 years are going to be like. And of course, they leaned forward, they listened carefully, and this is what he said to them. The next 10 years are going to be about the same as the last 10 years. It's going to be opportunity mixed with difficulty. Now, that tends to be the way life pans out. That's almost the way life tends to go. It's usually opportunity mixed with difficulty. Now, today the buzzword is, what's life going to be like? What's business going to be like post-COVID? And I think we could adapt the same policy. Life post-COVID is going to be exactly like life pre-COVID. It's going to be opportunity mixed with difficulty. Now, I actually just this week had a speaker say it this way. He said, in the short term, in the predictable future, business is not going to be survival of the fittest. It's going to be survival of the quickest. It's those people who can quickly adapt to change. It's those people who can quickly change the way we have always done things, who are going to remain afloat, who are going to thrive in the new normal in which we are called upon to live. Now, that got me to asking myself, how then can we survive? How am I going to be able to survive? Because as adults, you find that it's very, very difficult for us to change. Adults usually find it very, very difficult to, we kind of set in our ways. We don't make a change very, very easily. I learned this analogy at one point. Picture yourself sitting in a room, and the first thing you will hear with it is this. Of course, we all have, and I believe this completely, that we have an internal guidance system. And the first thing you'll hear is a prompting, is a notion, is almost like a gut, very, very subtle. And you'll ignore it. What an odd idea, what is that? Or maybe somebody will say something to you and you'll ignore that. And maybe at the next level, a little pebble falls on your face. And it might startle you a little, and you don't know what that is, and you possibly still don't pay it attention. And at the next level, a brick might fall across your face. And that will startle you, and that will possibly leave a scar and something. And if you still don't change, you might have the whole room crash around you. I feel like that is what has happened to us, all of us collectively, with this whole pandemic. We have had to be crushed in order for us to make any changes, to adopt to the new way that life is looking. Now, let me apply this to my own life. Now, the very first time I heard about training business, someone advised me, hey, you're a good speaker, you should go into the training business. That was in about 2000. I said to myself, what would I train people about? Why would I want to be a speaker? Well, I don't even have a corporate job. What would I want to tell anybody? And so I ignored that information. I ignored that idea. I was too set in my own ways. Now, moving on, about 2006, I remember attending a speaker's course, and at least at that point I got the idea of writing books, and that is when I went into writing of books and all of that. But that is when I first came across the word webinar. But it still sounded like far out to me. It wasn't something that I adapted or started to live with or started to do. And then fast forward about 3 or 4 years ago, I remember being at a conference in the US, and someone talked to me about Zoom and how this is the way forward, and you should be able to conduct seminars and conferences online, remotely without being in the same room. And I still wasn't adaptable to change. So I'm thinking, like the next adult, I am guilty of never learning, of not being adaptable to change. And these are all things we have to learn. These are all things we all have to rework our minds to where we are beginning to be adaptable to change, to where we are beginning to learn faster. Because like the speaker said, it's not going to be survival of the fittest. It's going to be survival of the quickest. Now, in one of my recent videos, I had referred to a story of a young artist who went to a guru and said to him, Master, teach me everything you know. And the wise old man told him, I cannot teach you everything I know, because your mind is too full of what you already know. And it reaffirmed to me something I have always known, that more of what will progress me forward is not so much what I need to learn, it's what I need to unlearn. And I asked my audience to share with me what are some of the things that you need to unlearn, and I got quite a long list. Things like it's too late to start over, things like I'm not good enough, I would be alone, I could fail, I've made too many mistakes, my family wouldn't approve. All these are programs that are running in our minds that are building a wall against us learning anything. So in order for us to become adaptable, in order for us to change, these are things we need to unlearn. These are programs we need to bring down so that then our minds are open to what it is that we need to learn. The biggest one for me is what would people say? That was very, very big. I always ask myself, how would I look? You know, I make a fool of myself. What are people going to think of me? And that has stopped me many times from taking the action that I need to take. And possibly you can relate with that, you know. We're actually starting a program called the 7 Days to Change. And let me give you an example. One of the lessons in that program is me and my money. It's not the kind of scenario where we bring in experts to talk to you about investments and real estate and everything, because guess what? We know this already. If I was talking to you about weight loss, I wouldn't talk about the technical eat this and exercise like this, because these are things we know already. What we need to be addressing is why don't we implement what we already know, and that is what I'm calling our unlearn list. We have this barrier that is stopping any new information from coming in. And so what is the process? How can we unlearn? How can we remove the things we already know from our mind so that then the guru is able to teach us something new? I'm going to share just a few steps on how we can unlearn. How can we offload our minds so that then we can take in new information? And the first thing you want to do is this: become aware of your internal guidance system. Whether you want to call it your gut, whether you want to call it the spirit, whether you want to call it your heart, your thoughts, your innermost inclinations, whatever words you want to use, there is the still small voice that speaks within you. And anybody who has become good at what they do, anybody who has succeeded, will have learned to trust their internal guidance system. If you have an idea, it doesn't matter that you have never seen it done before. Just trust your gut and be open to change. My next point is this: become careful about negative information. Put a limit on how much negative information you're taking in. Now, this negative information could come in the way of the company that you're keeping, the kind of people you're conversing with. It could also come in the way of how much news are you ingesting. Now, at this time, there is so much negativity, which is really all the time. There's always news, basically, is bad news. So you want to put a limit on how much negative information you're ingesting, because it tends to crowd our minds. It tends to create a barrier against us being open, against us being positive, against us doing any new thing. So you want to be able to create a barrier, create a limit, on how much negative information you're taking in. And the third one is this: embrace the unknown. The fact that you haven't seen it done before, the fact that you haven't done it before, doesn't mean that it can't be done. If I had learned what a webinar is 5 years ago, I'll probably be much further ahead than I am now. If I had adopted when somebody told me, hey, you could be a good speaker, you could be a trainer, possibly I would have been that much further. Become open to the unknown. One speaker put it this way: when you argue that this is how I've always been, you're arguing against progress. Allow yourself to be another way. Don't be always the way you have always been. I like the analogy of a speaker who once held up a bottle under a tap, and it had some colored liquid, I think it was some juice or something, and he held it under a running tap. And as the clear water went through, it diluted the color in the liquid. And that is how we are going to unlearn the barriers that are in our minds. All these notions, all these programs that we have running in our minds, if we constantly put in new information, if we are constantly absorbed with positive information, it dilutes and finally overpowers all the negativity in our minds. So become open to new information, keep ingesting new information, be careful what conversations you're in, and keep learning. And that way you will slowly be breaking the barriers that are making you resistant to change. And it's only in this way that you're going to be successful in the near future that's coming. I hope you're going to stay in touch with us. Give us your comments, and let's talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.